Thank you, everybody. And then let me do this fun thing where I have a presentation for you guys. Now, just to let you know, obviously this is going to be recorded, so you can always come back later and rewatch anything. What I would like to do is wait until the end of my presentation to ask questions, because this is a lot of material for 60 minutes. So please do not be offended if I move a little bit quickly, because I want you guys to get up as much of this as you possibly can. Do we see the screen, everybody? Awesome sauce. Hi, Lynn. I can see you now that I have that. So welcome, everybody, to Introduction to Human Design Shadow Work. Today, we're going to talk a little bit, like 20 seconds, about who I am, because we know who I am. But if you are new, welcome. Welcome to my crazy hair and love of four-letter words. Who am I really quick? We're going to talk about shadow. What is shadow? We're going to talk about shadow work versus human design shadow work, because there's a difference. The benefits of human design shadow work, and our case study, because I want to show you guys what this looks like in action, is Miss Britney Spears. And then at the end, full disclosure, I'm going to talk very, very briefly about some of the services that I offer that involve shadow work and human design. I will not be offended if you stop listening at, like, when that shit happens. Don't even worry about it. I'm not stressed. If we are meant to work together, we 100% will. I have faith and trust in that. I'm looking at you, Felipe. I'm seeing you. And it obviously wouldn't be an hour with me if I didn't poke a little bit of fun at Felipe. And the longer you're here, the longer you'll realize that if I don't poke fun at him, something is clearly wrong. And he is very happy with the little poking fun. So I promise I am not offending him at all. So really quickly, I don't know if you noticed, but this girl right here on your screen, it's me. I just got these. I had a huge photo shoot last month. It was a goddess photo shoot. And I got the pictures back yesterday. So I was really, really excited to be able to actually put one of those pictures in here. It just made me feel really, really beautiful. And yeah, I love them. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Maureen. I am a 2/4 sacral generator. I live in Sedona with my two ridiculously good-looking pit bulls on a mission to empower and transform the lives of those ready to expand into their next greatest version of themselves. So, what is shadow? So, Carl Jung, who we like to refer to as the shadow daddy, said, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow has many, many definitions, but one that I particularly love is shadow is everything we reject about ourselves and the pain that we have long forgotten about or can't remember, and can often feel like emotional heaviness. Now, if anybody here is familiar with the tarot, this is 10 of Wands energy. Now, the shadow represents the parts of us that we no longer claim to be our own, which also includes positive qualities, which I think is incredibly interesting, but that's some more fun stuff we're going to talk about in a couple of slides. Now, shadow develops because of conditioning, because of trauma, resentment, and even society. Our shadow affects the way that we view the world and others through projections and triggers. Now, if any of you are familiar with your human design profile, like I said, I was a 2-4. If you have a 5 or a 2 in your profile, projections are going to be something that I'm fairly certain you are very, very familiar with. So this might come a little bit easier. You might resonate with it a little bit more than most people. Now, the shadow isn't always bad. It's not evil and it's not wrong. Shadows are created in an effort to fulfill a core childhood need that was not met. And the 3 basic childhood core needs are safety, love, and boundaries. How are we doing? Can I get a thumbs up? We're good? I'm not talking too fast? Awesome sauce. Thank you. I feel like I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. So, and I've only had like 1 cup of coffee today. So you guys are in for a treat. So one of the things that I wanted to do, especially when I'm doing an introduction, is to give you definitions of the 2 main words that I've been talking about when I talk about shadow, and that's trauma and conditioning. Because shadow, trauma, and conditioning are 3 different things, but sometimes I feel like people kind of group them all together and think they're one and the same, but they're not. So when we are talking about trauma, it is an event or circumstance that results in physical, emotional, or life-threatening harm. This results in the development of coping mechanisms known as trauma responses, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and I've been reading a lot where people are now saying collapse as well. So we're adding a 5th trauma response. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn, collapse. Now, it's important to note that trauma responses are not who we are, but what our bodies do when facing a threat. And this is incredibly important to remember. So I'm going to say this again, because that's how, like, I need you guys, like, if you're going to write something down, this is what you want to write down. Trauma responses are not who we are, but what our bodies do when facing a threat. Now, when we talk about conditioning, conditioning is an assumption that others, such as your primary caregivers, know better than us, so we take their word as gospel. For example, if I am a good girl and I don't talk and I'm not too loud, then my mother shows me love. So that is a conditioning for me in my brain, in my body, like, oh, if I'm quiet, then I get the love I want from my mom so bad. So that's kind of how conditioning works in a sense. Do you guys, we're good with these so far? Excellent. Okay. So one of the things that not a lot of people mention is that shadows actually secretly run our lives when they live in our subconscious. And our subconscious is like a computer. It's mechanical responses to external circumstances or events. So your shadows and your trauma responses will come up and show themselves depending on the environment and the people that you surround yourself with. And there are a lot of times that we don't even realize that we're acting from a place of shadow, because what we do is just so ingrained in who we are, we don't even realize that it is a shadow or it is a trauma response. So shadow work is an essential aspect of mental wellness that is often overlooked. So many people are afraid of shadow work because they think it is scary and there's going to be emotions that come up that are horrible and they can't hold that kind of emotion. They don't want to cry. I remember when I was first introduced to shadow work, those were my fears. I was not a person who cried. And I'm like, I don't want to cry. I don't want to tell you, I don't want to be open and vulnerable with you and then cry. And then you tell me I'm a bad person. I have learned that is not what shadow work is at all. Shadow work involves us facing and integrating the parts of ourselves that we repress, ignore, or deny. Again, it seems like it is a very daunting task that has a lot of fear based in it, especially in society. Shadow work actually helps us connect with who we are, our true selves, and then we get to lead a more fulfilling life. So for me, shadow work is the bee's knees. When we neglect our shadow self, when we say, no, I don't need that, I'm good, we often experience negative emotions such as anxiety, depression, and anger. These are emotions that are the result or can be the result of unprocessed trauma, unacknowledged fears, or unresolved conflict. By exploring and having compassionate curiosity for our shadow self, we can identify and heal those wounds, which leads to a greater sense of self acceptance and inner peace. And I don't know about you, but I am so down for that. If I could just, have some inner peace and maybe a little bit more self acceptance, yeah, I think it'd be pretty awesome. And I think 2024 is that year for me with my purple hair because I'm 44. Anyway, I digress. So now that I talked a little bit about shadow work, what's human design shadow work, right? In a nutshell, human design shadow work is an innovative and personalized way to do shadow work. It has been by far my favorite way to do shadow work. I get to take your body graph and I look at it and I get to explore with you these aspects of your chart, like your definition, your type, the gates that you have, your profile, your bridges, your undefined centers, your defined centers. And what I get to do is I get to synthesize them for you like a map. It's like a treasure chest. Like that's how I feel about it. Like human design shadow work is a treasure map to that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that we're all looking for. When I get to synthesize and we get to talk about this shadow work, we pull out where you are most likely to be living through those shadow beliefs and trauma responses. We then work through these beliefs with compassionate curiosity through journaling, inner child meditations. You can also use talk therapy, which is something I don't offer because I did not go to school for that. Hypnosis and exercise. We also have, I have what is known as it's a shadow pyramid that I give my clients that helps us work through the shadow belief. And we move all the way up to the root of that shadow belief. And spoiler alert, 9 times out of 10, the shadow belief and the trauma response have nothing to do with the root of why this is coming up. I know it sounds crazy, but I've done it myself. And so much of the shadow and the conditioning and the trauma responses that I have start out like something so simple, and they wind up always coming back to my childhood and my need for safety where there was none, and my need for love where there was none. So it's incredibly interesting once you start diving in. And it's actually a little bit mind blowing. I'm not going to lie. One of the things that we can do is simply being aware and recognizing the shadow parts of ourselves so that we can begin to heal them. Now, when we take a look at shadow through the lens of gene keys, when we talk about shadow, Richard Rudd says 3 things: allow, accept, embrace. Right? That's what we are looking to do with our shadows through our human design body graph. Richard also says that there is a gift in every shadow. And as you start exploring your body graph and seeing the shadows and the conditioning and the trauma response, you will 100% start seeing the gift within that shadow. And that's when your aha moments happen. And it is so much fun to see that happen, to see it happen for somebody, or to even have it happen to you. Just like that light bulb goes on and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it's magnificent and beautiful and lovely. So from personal experience, I can attest to about a gazillion, not a bazillion like I wrote down, but like a gazillion different ways incorporating human design has worked in my favor when it comes to shadow work. Number one, my body graph is my body graph. Nobody else has that. So my human design shadow work is going to be customized and tailored to me. I'm an Aries, and I'm totally down for customization. The fellow Aries in the house is like, yes, me. It's not such a bad thing to be. I don't think being selfish is such a negative thing. Number 2 is proof. During the shadow sessions, and even in my own personal with my own coach, we talk about the things that you are going through. And then as you're talking about them, I'm literally looking at your body graph and pointing out, oh, I see this here. I see this here. Oh, what about this? And then you get to start working on, okay, I'm aware of this and I see where this is. What's my next step? How do I move through this? And that's what human design shadow work helps you do. 2 more, because my favorite number is 4. Number 3 is freedom, right? We are all unique. Human design is known as the science of differentiation. When you are in a space of 0 expectation, there is a safety in that. There's no need to think that you have to be like somebody else, because your chart is yours. Nobody else is who you are. So it is the freedom to do and be whom you choose to be and who you want to be. When I sat in my own container and did my own human design shadow work with my coach, it really, knowing that this was a safe space for me made me feel like I wasn't going to be rejected for the things that I said or the things that I did. There was literally no expectation. This was uncharted territory. And when I don't feel judged, I feel like I can be more honest with you. Number 4 is innovation. This is something that I know personally only 4 people do. Human design shadow work is something brand new. This is the cutting edge for the modality of human design, and I love being here. So, are we down to hear about Britney Spears? Okay, cool. All right. So, one of the first things that I do when I am looking at a body graph is I'm looking at conditioning factors. So right here, this is actually Britney Spears' human design. So some of the conditioning factors that I look for are openness. I look at your definition. I also look at your unconscious Mars for your ancestral and generational wounds, which is something also that we look at in the gene keys. Your strategy and authority, and even your type has the potential to be conditioned. When I look at your conscious moon, this is a nervous system trauma response. And that's something that we are going to look at the end of this. So if you know your human design, take a look and write down your conscious moon, both the gate and the line, because at the end, we're going to talk about how this line right here is a potential trauma response. Then we have Saturn for sabotage patterns. I use Chiron for wounding, and we also look at the root center for stress patterns. So these are just, this is just basic looking at a chart right now. So, oops, my bad. Okay, so yeah, I should have put this before the other slide. My apologies on that. So we'll just go over it again. Why not? Definition, conditioning factors, definition, openness, type, strategy, authority, planets, and asteroids, because Chiron is an asteroid. And I also work with a couple of other asteroids that are lesser known in the mainstream, but I find have an incredible impact on reading somebody's charts. So here we go. I have to make me really tiny because I wrote a lot. So the first thing, if Britney Spears was sitting right next to me or right across from me, this is literally how I would do it. So I know that Britney is a single definition. So her biggest conditioning factors are going to be her open centers. So here I start top down. Your crown or your head center is pressure from other centers. It is the pressure to act on inspiration. It is intrusive thoughts, overwhelm, anxiety, and depression. Then we go down here and we take a look at her undefined G center. So for her, having an undefined G center, she could possibly feel like she loses her direction. She disassociates. She pretends to be somebody else. She can also be a control freak. She can be obsessed with finding love and also obsessed with comparison. The trauma response associated with an open or undefined G center is fawning. So then we take a look at her ego. Low self-esteem, low self-worth. She has to prove herself. She overcompensates, over-delivers, and burnout, right? That's a lot for this ego center. Then we go back down because she's not done. She has an undefined solar plexus. This can be emotional manipulation, depression, overwhelm, fear of intimacy, having a secret life, sugarcoating the truth because you don't want to rock anybody's emotional wave. And then we get down to the root center. And when you have an undefined root, and we're looking at this through the lens of shadow, this can feel for her like a pressure to get things done the way other people want them done. It can also feel like procrastination and an addiction to stress. So if I wanted to wrap all of this up just based on her biggest conditioning factors of her open centers, I would say that Britney Spears probably has a lot of mental pressure that she puts on herself to find love and to always know where she's going. If she doesn't, if those are things that are not available to her, it greatly affects her self-esteem and her self-worth, which can lead to depression and manipulating other people and the way that they see her. This can also come across as I have to do everything the way other people want it done. When you have an open or undefined crown center, it is mental pressure because it's a pressure center. So we only have two pressure centers in our body graph, the crown and the root. Britney Spears has both of those undefined. So there is a lot of mental pressure for her to go along with the program, to always do what other people tell her to do. Now, I don't know that much about Britney Spears, but I do know that her father had a lot of control, I believe, over pretty much basically her career. So for me, I wonder if this mental pressure to always do what she's told has a lot to do with her daddy issues. She may have felt that in order to get the love from her father that she wanted so desperately, that she had to prove herself to him by doing what he wanted all the time. And that, again, not only is a part of this undefined ego center, but it taps into the undefined solar plexus as well. It's that emotional manipulation and sugarcoating the truth. I actually wonder if Britney and her father have actually ever had a truthful conversation with each other, because the odds are they probably haven't. So just based on her single definition, this is what I can pull from this chart. So then, on top of that, we then look at Britney Spears' type and her profile, her strategy, and her authority. So Britney Spears is a manifesting generator. Her not self theme is frustration. And being a single definition is all about being very much self contained and not needing relationships or people the way other people need people. When you are a single definition, you pretty much can do things by yourself if need be. You are very self-contained. So when I know that about Britney, I then ask, where did you give your power to others? Because that frustration is going to come out of her because she's been so locked in to doing what other people want her to do, right? Where does she refuse to listen to her strategy and authority? Right? Her strategy is wait to respond. Is she actually waiting to respond, or is the mental pressure to know where she's going and know and do what everybody else wants her to do and to always remain status quo? Is that pressure so much that she ignores the waiting to respond and just does whatever anybody else wants her to do? That would be a question I would ask Miss Britney. Again, and then another thing, where does she have no voice? So the reason I bring this up is because her Chiron is in gate 23. So here is gate 23, and you'll notice she already has gate 43. So if we were to place her Chiron, which is the wounded healer, if we put that right in here, she then has the complete channel called Genius to Freak. Where is she afraid? Wounded healer, wounds from the past. Where is she actually afraid to speak her mind? Where and who is she afraid to disappoint? Or who does she feel that she needs validation from in order to speak her truth? And if you've ever been on any of my human design calls, you'll notice that Miss Brittany has her Chiron and she has this one line. When we look at placements that have a one line, these are placements that you can feel in your body. So when we have Chiron, the wounded healer, in gate 23 in the throat center, to me, I would ask Brittany when she was frustrated, when she was arguing with people, when she was in a lot of that trauma and survival, where is she afraid to truly speak her voice? Was she able to actually articulate herself and her needs when it came to her mother and father and all the other adults? I guarantee you, she has probably lost her voice many, many times over her career, especially during times when there was an extreme amount of back and forth with her primary caregivers, because she wouldn't have been able to truly express her ideas because of all of the pressure from everybody else. Now, as a 5/1, where is she living out the projections of other people? Just like I had said earlier about the 5 line, one of the main, I want to say, characteristics of a 5 line is all about projection. If you have a 5 line in your profile, you have probably had to deal with the projections of other people being put on you your entire life. 5 lines have such a way about them. They are here to help guide and to fix things. But the way that a 5 line does that is to lead by example. If a 5 line cannot, if a 5 line stays in their little closet their whole life and they don't allow their gifts to come out, this is such a detriment and such, it would be sad for the world, because 5 lines are here to help us, to guide us, and to move the rest of us along by leading by example. And if a 5 line just does what other people wants them to do their whole life, how much satisfaction is really in that? Probably not a lot. Probably a lot of frustration. Who does she think that she needs to be based on these projections of others to be worthy of love and acceptance? Again, open G center, not knowing what direction, and always looking for love. That mental pressure she puts on herself and other people put on her to know where she's going and to have that fairy tale love affair. So the next thing that we look at when we're looking at human design shadow work is the conscious moon right here, gate 19. Gate 19 shows up as martyr energy when we're looking at the shadow. It's all about becoming so in tune with the needs of everybody else that she ignores her own. This can cause self-worth issues. She probably also took on a lot of the responsibilities that her parents should have. Now, as a 5 line, proving she is worthy by fixing and doing things for everybody else is one of those shadows of that 5 line. Now, she has the line 6 in her moon. Now, I'm going to give you all 6 lines at the end, but for her, a more than likely a trauma response for her is called the backstage manager. She refuses to shine her light, and she may let other people lead to avoid ridicule or public failure. And I feel like this resonates with Brittany based on just the things that I know about her family, right? Like, I don't think I know anything about her mom. The only thing that I really know about her is that whole thing with her dad, and then like she shaved her head. But just looking at just this conscious moon gate and the possible trauma response, to me, is pretty fitting for Miss Britney Spears. The next place that we want to look for this conditioning is Saturn, Daddy Saturn, gate 57. In your Saturn gate, this is the gate that will show you and tell you how you punish yourself. Gate 57 is the gate of intuition, and it's right here. She has it consciously and unconsciously right here. When we look at how she punishes herself through gate 57, it's by not trusting her intuition or silencing it or trying to rationalize it. Another thing, another trauma or shadow response for this gate is reacting out of fear, not clarity. So a little side note, in human design, the spleen center right here is where we hold our fear. Our spleen is not only about our physical health, but each gate here has a fear associated with it. So gate 57's fear is the fear of the unknown. Gate 50, which she has, is the fear of too much or too little responsibility, especially when it comes to her mother. Gate 32 is a fear of purposelessness. Who am I if I am not who other people want me to be? Gate 18 is a fear of authority. I'm going to leave that one there because I know I've talked about her dad a lot, but right here, that to me, it's like, and gate 48 has now left my brain because I'm trying to find it. Give me a second. I will get that to you guys because it's not in my brain, and it's always in my brain, but now that I want it there, it's like, nope. Oh, I have my book. Un momento, por favor. Talk amongst yourselves. Give me 2 seconds. Fear of inadequacy. Okay. Yes. Okay. So she may not feel good enough based on what other people tell her to do, right? Avoiding truth and confrontation. Oh, I don't think I'm good enough, so I'm just going to avoid everything. I'm going to go away. Nobody's going to see me for a while and they'll forget about me, so they won't realize that I don't think I'm good enough. Right? This fear of inadequacy. If I don't have external validation, am I really worthy? Somebody else has to tell me that I'm worthy, or I won't feel worthy enough. Inadequacy where it comes to love and the direction your life is headed. She could possibly not think that she's doing good enough right now. So there is that fear there with that undefined G center. A mental pressure to always be good enough. Do whatever you need to do. And this is the channel of the wavelength. So it's routine and talent is what will solidify her as a pop star or an expert in her field. But having this mental pressure to always be on your A game, no matter what, probably affects her pretty deeply. Then we also have this unconscious Mars, and this is part of what we talk about in the gene keys. It is core and ancestral wounds. Gate 56 is right here. She actually has the full channel of curiosity. Gate 56 is one of my favorites. It is my purpose sphere. It is the gate of the storyteller. So when we look at it from the lens of shadow through unconscious Mars, this could possibly be her believing that she doesn't have anything important to say or that nobody is going to listen to her. This can also make her feel like she has to tell big stories in order to get attention. The question here I put down in here is like, how big was the fish you caught? Well, the fish you caught was only like this, but the story you tell is it was this big, and I had to, all of us had to pull it into the boat, and it took 70 people. Like, that's kind of like the shit that happens when we slip into that shadow and that trauma response of gate 56. I will tell you personally, I actually went to see you guys for this. So back in my teenage years, I know this is going to be shocking, but I was not only a really good student, but I was so rebellious, and I pushed the limits, and I used to lie a lot, used to make my stories bigger because I thought if something sounded crazy or like outlandish, that would make people like me. And that's how I was as a teenager. And I actually have an undefined, all three of these for me are undefined. I have an undefined throat, G center, solar plexus, and ego. So when I look back on my teenage years, I can see myself expressing that wound of that gate 56, of me always feeling like I had to tell a bigger story than everybody else. And it's something I work on now. Now I just tell you the stories. If you like them, you like them. If someone's got something better, that's cool too. I'm too old to care now, but when I was a teenager, like, that was really important to me. And I have to give myself grace when I think about that, because I told a lot of pretty ugly lies that I would never do now. But, you know, I know more now than I did when I was 16. At least I hope I do. So thank you for listening to that. I appreciate it. I hope it wasn't too weird. I mean, even if it was, that's cool too. So we have talked, I briefly talked about Chiron earlier, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about it, because I think I missed something when I went on my tangent. That's right. Gate 23 is about expressing an inner knowing in a simple and accessible way. Growing up, was she taught to choose her words carefully? Wasn't she? I think she was on the Mickey Mouse Club too. So her words were given to her. So I find that to be really interesting. Was she told that she was weird or a freak because of the ideas that she had? Right? This can look like being afraid to speak at all because of the fear of being misunderstood or ostracized. This can also cause a lot of self-doubt and a belief that what she has to say isn't important, that no one will hear her, and that she isn't valued. And if anybody here is more of a Britney fan than I am, I would invite you to put yourself off mute and tell me if anything that I have said has resonated or is accurate. Because again, I don't know that much about her. I got other things to do for my life, but everybody loves Brittany. A couple more seconds while I take some agua pana. Okay. All right. So if we don't have does anybody have any questions about Brittany? Anything? I will try to answer as much as I can. I know we said we were going to talk about questions later, but guess what? It changed, apparently.
I do have one, of course.
Of course you do.
Of course I do.
What's up, dude?
I'm looking at my chart and I can't see the Chiron.
Oh, because Chiron, when you go to genetic matrix and you just do a foundation report, just a basic one, they don't add Chiron in. You have to go in and type in quantum plus Chiron in order to get it. But if you don't have yours, Felipe, I know I deleted your information the last time we talked. If you want to shoot me your information, I will throw it in genetic matrix and I'll give you a chart with your Chiron in it.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem, dude.
Yeah, that was it. And then because I was looking inside genetic matrix, actually I tried to pay using your link and then it didn't work. I don't know why. So what? I actually never paid. Yeah, I don't know. Probably because of some weird stuff with my credit card. I'm in Brazil, so it's weird. Anyways,
yeah, we'll figure it out, dude. I'll send it. Yeah, send me your information, and I'll send you your chart.
But the reason why I said all this was because I was changing everything inside the genetic matrix right now, and I actually went to the foundation transit.
Oh, yes.
And now that body graph is very interesting because the only open area that I have is the crown. So that's kind of like what's happening now.
Yes. So just like we have transits in astrology, we also have transits in human design. So a lot of times when I work with reflectors, that's the first thing we do because they have no defined centers. They're completely open. So for them, looking at the transits actually almost, I want to say it almost dictates the day based on the transits. I'm one of those nerds that look at my transits every day just to see what energy I can play with for the day. And if you guys want, I can do a masterclass on transits for you guys.
I'm going to start watching mine every day now.
Yeah, there's an app I use. It's called, and they don't have any affiliate links, which is unfortunate because I tell everybody and their mother about this. It's called Neutrino Design. And they give you that it is $35 American a year. And the amount of information they give you is redonkulous. Like it shows you your transits and you can actually play your transits for like 7 days and see how everything changes in your body graph. It's super cool. You know what? We'll do a masterclass on transits. How about that? So yes. Awesome sauce.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ladies, do you have any questions? We're good. Oh, hi, Karen. It's good to see you, my dear. Okay. So now, as we are actually going to have some fun and we're going to look at our own charts. So Felipe, that was an excellent kind of like little segue to the final part of my talk. So what we want to do is I don't want to ever leave you with nothing that you can't apply right away. So today, what we're going to do is we are going to look at the line in your conscious moon and we are going to see the trauma identities that are associated with just the line. So if you take a look at your moon, it is the personality side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. Our conscious moon in human design is what drives us. So, for example, for me, I have gate 38 in my moon. Gate 38 is the gate of the fighter. I know, shocking again. Oh, you're in Aries and you want to fight. What? Not me. So, for me, what drives me is fighting the good fight. It's fighting for the underdog. It is shopping local. It is supporting women-owned businesses. It is doing all of these things that almost like say, damn the man, kind of like that for me is what drives me. I love a good underdog story. And it's also when I am in the shadow of my moon gate, it is a pressure to find my purpose, and it becomes incredibly overwhelming for me. So what I do is I say, hey, what's my line? Well, my line is number 6, which is the backstage manager. One of my trauma identities or responses when I am triggered is that I refuse to shine my light, and I let other people lead in order to avoid being ridiculed. And to go further, my 4th line wound is rejection. So what had happened to me is, and it's a story that's still unfolding. For a very long time, I was afraid to actually say that I was good at human design and gene keys and coaching, because it felt embarrassing, and it felt like people wouldn't believe me. And it felt a little like snobby for me to be like, I know, I'm so good at human design and I could do all, like, it just didn't sit right with me. And as I've worked through my own shadows and my own beliefs, I'm stepping out of that, and I'm actually embracing more of the gifts that I have, and I'm owning them more. And I'm saying yes to more opportunities to get myself out of my comfort zone. That's how I'm working with my line 6, because anytime anybody asks me to do something that highlights human design, I'm not even going to lie to you. My first inside my head, it's always like, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Somebody else is going to have to do this because I'm going to fail miserably. But now as I'm working on it, and I can say that I'm good at human design now and feel confident when I say it. So bonus points for me. Thank you guys for listening to that. Let's talk about you guys, just not Felipe. Okay, let me make this a little bit smaller. I apologize, guys. All right, so if we are ready, line 1. If you have a line 1 in your moon, it is known as the protector. You use your mind to over-investigate, obsess, and try to figure out the unknown. You will figure it out. And that is that trauma response and that trauma identity. Line 2 is the talent. Your gifts to distract, overcompensate, and overshadow the shortcomings that you perceive that you have. It's also overworking. One of the things that you will hear, or you may have said with that line 2, is I'm just a hard worker. I just love what I do so much. I work so hard and I'm just so amazing. Line 3 is the anarchist. It's causing havoc, chaos, being non-committal, hurting yourself and others to avoid your own deep inner woundings. I am a rebel who cannot be tamed. So a trauma identity or a trauma response for you could possibly be just setting everything on fire, causing havoc, causing drama, just to show that you cannot be tamed. Line 4 is the extrovert. Line 4 receives external validation by being a people person. You work hard to manipulate the way others see you rather than working on your message. I am who they think I am. Line 5 is the fixer. It's using your energy to fix everybody else's problems in an effort to be liked. Now, remember, there's a fine line between not wanting and being a doormat. Line 5 says they need me. Line 6 is the backstage manager. Again, we've said it 3. This is going to be the 3rd time, so why not? Refusing to shine your light, allowing other people to lead so you avoid public ridicule. I could never do that. Does anybody have any questions or would like to share the line in their moon? Don't be shy. Talk to me. Talk to me.
I'm a 2.
Okay, so I was like, is that Heather? Heather,
That's
so
me.
what's your gate and your line?
I'm a 56 too.
Oh.
Oh.
So can you identify with the excuse, I'm just a hard worker?
Yeah, my whole life. Until I quit my job, and then it became like, oh, then I just don't have boundaries on when I work. Like,
Yep.
like I will work all the time, but I'll also screw off and go for a walk in the middle of the day with a dog, or like I have a little bit more balance that way. But if I have something that I want to figure out, then it's like full on, don't stop working on that thing for a client. Yeah.
So how did you resonate when I was talking about Brittany's 56?
I resonated with quite a few things in Brittany's world, actually.
Right?
I'm like, oh, the 3. Oh, look at that. 56. Oh, yeah. Is the 56 the who do I think I need to be for love, acceptance? And I was writing
56 is the gate of the storyteller. So remember, I was talking about my purpose, and like I would always tell these really bigger
story, like,
yeah, like I needed to out story people in order to think that I felt like people were hearing me.
Right. So the exaggeration. Yeah, it can come out of my mouth. It can.
So in the shadow of the 56 as well, especially when we're talking about the moon and what drives you, for gate 56, it can be the drive to tell the story, to get your words out into the world. The gift of gate 56 is enrichment. How are my words and my stories going to enrich the lives of the readers? And one of the things that you may do as a trauma identity or a trauma response is, I'm going to have to work really, really, really hard in order to get this perfect, so that I make sure that everybody who touches my book is going to be changed by it.
Right. Or I'm just not going to do it because it can't be
right. So
like,
one
so
of the
I procrastinate from starting because it's not going to be perfect.
Right. So I will tell you guys a little secret, since, you know, you guys are my favorite. One of the things that you can do is take a look at these lines and apply them to your profile. So for example, I'm a 2-4. So I can look at line 2, the talent. I'm a hard worker. Do you know how many times I said that as a police officer? How many I would take people's shifts. I would overcompensate to prove, you know, like this is who I am, so good at policing. I'm going to take all of the shifts. It's going to be wonderful. Right. So I can use line 2 for me. I can also use line 4. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me I was a people person, I wouldn't have to work ever. But that was a trauma response for me, because at an early age, I learned in order to be loved, I had to be that person that everybody could come to. I was only worthy of love if I did things for other people. Right. And then I have the 6 in my moon. So we can take a lot of information from just these moon lines and apply. You can apply these. I'm not even shitting you. You can apply these to every single gate in your foundational chart. Based on what planet it is, you can use these lines to see the ways that you sabotage yourself when it comes to that planet. Like Britney Spears, her Saturn was 57.5, trusting her intuition, right? Look at line 5, the fixer. She wants to fix everybody's problems. Now, if she's in the shadow of gate 57, I wonder if she suffers from guilt. That's a line 5 wound, because she doesn't listen to her intuition as much as she should, and then winds up having to fix things instead. Or even asking herself, I should have known this was going to happen. How, like, just that feeling of, well, I should have known this was going to happen. I guess I didn't. So now I have to fix everything. Like when you're able to take all this little shadow stuff and apply it to each one of these gates, each one of these planets for you, it literally opens up a whole new world when it comes to your human design chart. So I believe this will be one of the final things that we talk about. So where do you start? Obviously, I'm like, oh, get a reading with me. That would be amazing. But that's not who I am as a person. The first thing you want to do is you want to question everything. Don't just take everything at face value. Question me, please. I'm a generator. I love responding. Question everything. Another thing you can do is notice your patterns and behaviors, especially that's just how I am statements, right? Oh, you're here late. That's just who I am. I love my work so much. I'm going to be here 15 hours a day. Notice those things, right? Another thing we want to do is we want to learn how to heal our trauma. The next thing we want to do is feel. And that was like the hardest thing for me, because I have stuffed down years and years and years of feeling that when it started coming up, it felt like it would never stop. Grieve, mourn, practice compassion and grace with yourself. Another thing we can do is to choose differently, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, if we are observing and we are witnessing our trauma patterns and our shadows, and we want to change them, now that we have this awareness, we have the option to choose differently. That's where we have to come into our own and be brave enough to say, I'm not going to do this way anymore. I'm going to choose differently today. And that's a victory. That's a huge victory. And again, shadow work, where to start? I love shadow work. I'm a huge fan. So I believe, hold on. Okay. So how do you know if shadow work is for you? Well, if you've tried everything like positive affirmations, mindset work, vision boards, journaling, and you still find yourself in the same pattern, shadow work, baby. If your relationships are toxic, they lack boundaries and are full of manipulation, lies, and gaslighting, shadow work. If you are a self-proclaimed or in the closet people pleaser, raise your hand. I tell myself I'm a recovering people pleaser because I slip, because I'm human. Everything you do is for the other, and your needs get put on the back burner, shadow work. And finally, you know that you have the gifts and the skills, but you're unable to get over your fears. And that leads to depression, anxiety, and even dis-ease. Shadow work, darling. So let me just make sure. Okay, so this is the end of the introduction to shadow work, like the super informational stuff. For the next literally like 2 minutes, I'm going to just go through a couple of the offers that I have. And then if it is still respectful of your time and anybody has questions, I am more than happy to stay as long as I need in order to answer the questions that you guys have. So I offer a couple of different shadow services. I offer a shadow report. I also offer a 4-week human design intensive, which is so much fun. It's 4 weeks. You get a 60-minute foundational reading, a 60-minute shadow reading, probably long because I like to talk, and Voxer support and coaching Monday through Friday for 4 weeks. And if you're unfamiliar with Voxer, it's literally like a walkie-talkie, but it's your phone. You press a button and you talk, I hear you, and we can go back and forth. So it's literally like having a human design coach in your pocket for 30 days. And this offer is $499, which is actually cheaper than if you would buy a foundation and a shadow reading from me. And it's limited to 5 people a month because I take it very, very seriously. And it is my responsibility to be the best human design shadow coach that I can possibly be. And I know after 5 people, I won't be able to give the time to everybody that they deserve. So every first of the month, it'll be before that. You can come in on the first of the month. If you were to purchase this today, we start February 1st. A couple of more. Oh, yeah, that's right. Then I have, if you're coming to Sedona, I do have a VIP day, which is super fun. And if you have more questions about that, please let me know. One of my best friends, who is literally the best sound healer in Sedona, ends this VIP day with a 90-minute one-on-one sound bath. And it is life-changing. I love her so much, and she is so good at what she does. To end your day with a 90-minute sound bath just sounded like the best thing in the world to me. So it's pretty awesome. And if you're like, Maureen, I just want to go all the way, just what is your biggest offer? I do have a one-on-one container that's a 3-month container. We meet twice a month for 90 minutes over Zoom. You have Voxer support. There is a shadow work pyramid that I work you through, as well as a new identity pyramid. So once we get to the root of those shadows, we work right with that new identity to build that neural pathway to get you going in a new direction, so that you don't continue to go into those cycles over and over and over again. For you guys today, if you choose this 1 month, if you choose the 3-month container, I give you a free month. So you're getting 4 months of shadow coaching for the price of 3. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, all the good things, I am Maureen Webb everywhere. I made this simple for me. I made it simple for you guys. Please feel free to check out my website. I'm very, very proud of the new pictures. I'm not going to lie. I felt so beautiful that, like, it's a little bit embarrassing, and now I feel myself blush and I want to cry, but like, oh my God, I couldn't even realize I didn't even believe it was me. Like, I didn't think I could be that beautiful. So I'm gonna not cry. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being so amazeballs. And if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. Oh, and let me read. I didn't even read the chat yet because I didn't have access to it. So ooh. Oh, that's Felipe. I was like, oh, an April birthday. It's fucking Felipe. So does anybody have any questions, comments? We can just shoot the shit now. I don't care. Let's hang out and have coffee. Anybody? Here. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to stop the recording and then we can really talk.
I do, but I always have questions. But you know, I'm giving you girls the room so you can ask the questions that you want.
What do you want,
If
dude?
I start asking questions, I'm not going to stop.
I know. So do you want to ask one question, or can these ladies have some time with me?
The ladies have the time with you, sure.
It's only taken me like 4 months to learn how to keep him in check. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me stop the recording. Oh, and thank you guys who are watching the recording. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free, send me an email, shoot me a message, tag me in the community. I love answering questions, so ask away and have a wonderful day. Bloop.